Hey there! Ready to dive into some ancient mysteries? You shared some awesome sources with me, and I'm really excited about this one in particular. It's this classic text all about esoteric philosophy. It's just bursting with symbolism and historical connections. So get ready because our deep dive today is all about uncovering the hidden wisdom in these mysteries and how they've shaped, and I think continue to shape, how we see the universe and ourselves.
I think you'll be surprised how much these ancient ideas still resonate with us today. It's like they offer a glimpse into some deeper understanding of who we are and our place in the cosmos.
I am so ready for those aha moments. Let's get into it. I think we have to start with Pythagoras. I mean, it's always blown my mind how someone from so long ago could have such a huge impact on how we view the universe even now. He was the one who said that math was like a sacred science, right? Not just some boring subject we all had to suffer through in school.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. To Pythagoras and those who followed him, numbers weren't just quantities. They were the, fundamental building blocks of reality, like the language of the cosmos.
Yep.
Imagine this. The movements of all the planets, they're creating this kind of celestial music, a symphony of celestial harmonics. That's exactly how the Pythagoreans saw the universe, using math to get a handle on that divine order behind everything.
So it's not just about doing calculations, it's about really contemplating those numbers, using them as a way to understand the divine. I can see why that idea is still so powerful, even today. And speaking of contemplating those big questions about life, we can't leave out Socrates. His whole approach to teaching was totally different, right? No lectures, just questions, questions, questions.
Right. Socrates believed that truth, it was already inside each of us. And you could awaken it through dialogue and self-reflection. Picture the world as this massive school of virtue. And discourse, that's the key to unlocking the knowledge we already have within us. That's how he saw things. All those questions, they weren't meant to be annoying or frustrating. They were meant to guide each person towards their own inner truth.
It's like he was saying, hey, stop looking outside yourself for answers. It's all right here. Which brings us to this really interesting point. Philosophy itself, it kind of emerged from those religious mysteries of the ancient world. It wasn't always something separate from religion, right?
No, for a really long time, philosophy and those religious mysteries, they were intertwined. Think of the mysteries like the birthplace of philosophical thought, a place where initiated priests, they held this wealth of knowledge, a universal wisdom, you could even say, passed down through generations and generations. And a lot of those famous philosophers, they were initiates themselves. They recognized that the mysteries held some seriously profound truths.
So it wasn't just about secret handshakes and ceremonies. It was about seeking this really profound knowledge about the universe, about humanity's place in it all. So were they basically trying to teach people about those divine laws that govern existence?
Exactly. It went beyond simple religious practices. They dug into the philosophical side, the moral implications of divine law, and how it all worked in the natural world. It was all about encouraging people to use their faculties, intelligently, to live a life that was virtuous, that had real purpose. That's what the mysteries were about.
That actually reminds me of something that really stood out when I was doing my research. Remember how early Christians, they would actually use Mithraic temples as their own places of worship? They were borrowing from their neighbors. Makes you wonder if they adopted some of those Mithraic ideas too, right?
Oh yeah, definitely possible. The way ideas and practices get shared and exchanged, that's a constant throughout history, really. In fact, some scholars even think that early Christian practices, things like the whole system of priests and rituals, they might have roots in those Mithraic mysteries.
That makes you wonder how much those ancient mysteries still affect us today, even if we're not aware of it. Okay, I want to get into something that might seem a little out there, but hear me out. Ptolemy's geocentric model, you know the one, right? Earth at the center. Modern astronomers, they tend to kind of brush it aside, but I have a feeling there's got to be more to it than meets the eye, right?
Oh, you're spot on. What a lot of people miss is that Ptolemy's model, it wasn't supposed to be a literal map of the cosmos. It was symbolic, a diagram, a way for them to grasp how those divine and elemental forces interacted inside each person. Think of it like a blueprint of the soul, where the planets and the elements, they represent different facets of our being.
So instead of focusing on Earth's physical location in space, they were more interested in how all the different parts of creation, even ourselves, are connected. That's a completely different way of looking at the universe.
Exactly. It's about seeing the bigger picture, how the ancients saw the universe as this living, interconnected being, this whole, and understanding ourselves. That was the key to understanding the cosmos. That perspective, it has some seriously profound implications for how we view our own place in everything.
That is mind-blowing. And it makes me think of Schopenhauer, his ideas about the will being that driving force behind everything. But he also talked about the intellect being like a guide for the will, didn't he?
Yeah, Schopenhauer, he had this incredible insight that the will, this like blind striving force, it often acts without reason. Picture this, a really strong blind man. He's carrying a lame man who can see. The blind guy, he's that raw power of the will. And the lame man, he represents the intellect. He can see the path, but he can't walk it on his own.
So our thoughts, our actions, they're this constant back and forth between those two forces, raw desire and reasoned guidance, right?
Exactly. And Schopenhauer believed that true genius, it came about when the intellect got the upper hand, leading to a life guided by reason, not just impulse.
That is such a fascinating way to think about human nature, that struggle between our desires and our ability to think rationally makes you wonder if we can actually train our intellect to be a better guide. But let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the Druids. I was reading that they had this like two-tiered teaching system, a moral code for everyone, and then these more esoteric teachings just for initiates. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, the Druids, they believed that the soul was immortal, and then it goes on this journey through reincarnation. They saw it as this process of learning, evolving towards like unity with the divine. Their moral code was all about living in harmony with nature and with each other. But the esoteric teachings, they went deeper, exploring the mysteries of the cosmos and those hidden powers within the soul. For the Druids, knowledge, it was a powerful tool, and they believed that some teachings, they were better kept for those who had gone through the proper preparation and training.
Like they understood that knowledge in the wrong hands, it could be dangerous. And I was reading about that device they had, the Eoton Moran, that breastplate worn by the archdruid. It was supposed to strangle anyone who said something false while wearing it. Talk about a high-stakes lie detector test. What do you think that symbolized?
It's a powerful image. Shows how much they valued truth, integrity, especially for those in a position of spiritual authority. Speaking of seeking truth, let's talk about Gnosticism, this whole spiritual tradition that emerged around the same time as Christianity, but had some really different ideas. It all started with Simon Magus, who had some wild theories about how the universe came to be. Have you heard about the Syzygies?
Honestly, I'm not sure I totally get that one. It sounds pretty complicated.
So Simon Magus, he believed that the universe came about from the interaction of these positive and negative forces. He called them Syzygies. Think of them like pairs of opposites, light and dark, masculine and feminine, that kind of thing. And he imagined this substance called the pleroma, kind of like a cosmic soup created from the blending of spiritual and material essences. From that pleroma, 3 pairs of opposites emerged. And those, along with the eternal one, made a total of 7 fundamental forces. It's a pretty complex idea, but basically it's trying to explain where duality comes from and that constant interplay of forces in the universe.
It's incredible how these ancient thinkers, they were wrestling with such profound ideas. And then there's that mysterious word, abraxas. It seems like a key concept in Gnosticism. What's the deal with that one?
Abraxas. It's a word that's surrounded by mystery.
Yeah.
But there's this fascinating numerological connection. If you add up the numerical value of each letter in the Greek word abraxas, you get 365. The number of days in a year. It's like a secret code hidden right there in plain sight, suggesting this deeper connection to the cycles of time, the cycles of the cosmos.
It's mind-blowing how ancient cultures, they packed such profound meanings into words, into numbers. So it wasn't just about the word itself, it was about the code within it, the hidden message.
Absolutely. And when you dig a little deeper, you find connections to other mystical traditions. In Hebrew, the word seraphim, it refers to a hierarchy of spiritual beings, and it means to blaze out. That connects Abraxas to this idea of divine light emanating from this hidden source. It's like these different ancient wisdom traditions were all talking to each other, using these symbols and numerology to share a deeper understanding of the universe.
Okay, let's move on to something a little more concrete, I guess you could say. The Serapis Temple. I've heard stories, whispers really, of some pretty intense initiation rituals. What can you tell us about those?
Well, initiates who wanted that wisdom of Serapis, they had to go through this maze of underground passages. It was a real test of courage, both physical and moral. It wasn't for the faint of heart, that's for sure. Imagine finally coming face to face with Serapis, this awe-inspiring figure illuminated by lights you couldn't even see after all those challenges. Must have been a truly profound and transformative experience.
I'm getting chills just picturing it. But that's not even the whole story, is it? There's more going on here. I heard something about like hidden mechanisms beneath the temple, like some kind of ancient tech.
You're right. What's fascinating is that archaeologists actually found evidence of these mechanical devices under the temple. It makes you wonder if those priests were using technology to create these immersive, maybe even, unsettling experiences for the initiates. What other secrets are still buried under those ancient ruins? What lengths did they go to make those initiation rituals truly unforgettable?
Wow. That adds a whole other layer of intrigue to the story. Speaking of intense initiations, we can't forget about the Eleusinian Mysteries. I mean, they were one of the most famous and revered rites in the ancient world. What made them so special?
Oh, the Eleusinian Mysteries. They are held in honor of the goddesses Demeter and Persephone, and they were known for their beauty, their philosophical depth, their high moral standards. Their influence spread far beyond Greece. It reached Rome, even Britain. And the rituals, they were said to be deeply transformative. They offered initiates this glimpse into the mysteries of life, death, and rebirth. Just imagine a society where some of the most respected people, philosophers, poets, even emperors, they all took part in these rituals. That's how central the Eleusinian Mysteries were to their culture.
It's amazing how those mysteries captured the imaginations of people from such different backgrounds. And I always think about that imagery of the two gates, the ones the initiates pass through. What do you think the symbolism of those gates was all about?
Think of it like a symbolic journey from darkness into light. One gate led down, symbolizing birth into the material world, a descent into experience. The other gate led upward. It represented the ascent to truth, reuniting with the divine. Passing through those gates, it signified a symbolic death and rebirth, like a transformation of consciousness.
It's a powerful metaphor for the human journey.
Yeah.
That cycle of birth, death, and renewal, it's something we all go through in one way or another. And speaking of journeys, we have to talk about the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. That's a myth that's always really resonated with me.
Orpheus, the master musician, he embodies the seeker of truth. And Eurydice, his beloved, she represents humanity. Humanity lost in that underworld of illusion. His whole attempt to rescue her from the shadows, it's this powerful allegory for the soul's journey back to its divine source. And the fact that he doesn't succeed in bringing her back to the living world, he loses her because he couldn't resist looking back. That highlights the challenges and temptations we face on that path to enlightenment.
It's a reminder to stay focused on the goal, right? Even a moment of doubt can derail our progress. Makes you think about those times in your own life when you've struggled to stay the course. Okay, I want to dive into another myth that's packed with symbolism. The story of Bacchus being torn apart by the Titans and then resurrected by Jupiter. What secrets are hidden in that tale?
The myth of Bacchus, or Dionysus, it captures that eternal struggle between darkness and light. The Titans, they represent those chaotic forces trying to destroy that divine spark we all have inside us. Bacchus getting torn apart, that symbolizes the fragmentation of spiritual truth. It's scattered throughout the material world. And his resurrection by Jupiter, the king of the gods, that represents the triumph of spirit over matter, reuniting our fragmented selves with our divine source.
It's an inspiring reminder that even when things fall apart, there's always hope for renewal, for transformation. It makes you think, what are those titans in your own life, those forces trying to hold you back from your true potential? Now, for a legend that has captured the imagination for centuries, the lost city of Atlantis, why do you think this story continues to fascinate us?
Plato's description of Atlantis, this advanced civilization just swallowed by the sea in a single day and night, it's a powerful image. He described these violent earthquakes, floods, and how the sea became impassable because of all the mud that settled after the island sank. It's this haunting image of a lost paradise.
And there's this intriguing detail mentioned in a history of Ethiopia. It talks about these 7 islands sacred to Proserpine and then 3 larger islands dedicated to Pluto, Ammon, and Neptune. Could that be another reference to Atlantis, do you think?
It's certainly possible. And remember how Plato talked about all that mud making the sea impassable. That makes it even more likely that there might be some physical remains of Atlantis still down there, hidden under the waves, waiting to be discovered.
That makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in the ocean. But getting back to Atlantis, it's often portrayed as a civilization with incredible technology, with knowledge that was far beyond its time. Could that be where some of the wisdom we see reflected in other ancient cultures originated?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? Think about it, how widespread sun worship is in ancient cultures. Or the cross and the serpent, both symbols of Atlantis. They pop up in different traditions all over the world. And then you've got that plumed serpent motif in Mayan and Quiche traditions.
Yeah.
It's almost as if fragments of Atlantean wisdom, they spread out,
Yeah.
They were carried to different parts of the world, influencing how civilizations developed.
That's an incredible idea. A lost civilization planting the seeds of knowledge around the globe. Okay, let's talk about the Kabiric mysteries. They're not as well known as the Eleusinian mysteries, but they were considered incredibly important in the ancient world. What makes them so fascinating?
The Kabiric mysteries were super secretive. Their rituals were only known to the initiates. We know they had a connection to the Pelasgians. They were people who lived in Greece before the Greeks. And Herodotus, the historian, he suggested they had this special reverence for Mercury. But the main figures in these mysteries, the Kabiri, they remain a bit of an enigma. Some people believe they were spirits of fire, these powerful forces that shape reality, while others see them as representing the planets, influencing our lives in subtle ways.
It's like they represent those unseen forces that shape our destinies, whether we know it or not. There's a sense of hidden power there, something that goes beyond our everyday understanding. I even found this rather chilling account from Clement of Alexandria, an early Christian writer. He describes a ritual where the Corybantes, they were associated with the Kabiric mysteries. They kill their third brother, cover his head, and bury it. It's, it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it's a powerful image, no doubt. But remember, Clement, he was looking at these mysteries from the outside. He was seeing things through the lens of his own beliefs. He saw it as a ritual murder, but it's possible he just didn't get the symbolism. It could have been an allegory for transformation, for symbolic death and rebirth.
That's a really good point. It's important to remember that interpretations, they can be so different. What one culture finds shocking or barbaric, it could hold deep spiritual significance for another culture. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's explore Hermetic philosophy. I'm particularly intrigued by this story about Hermes Trismegistus encountering the great dragon, Poimandres. It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. Tell me more about that encounter.
Okay, picture this. Hermes is deep in meditation. He's in this desolate place. Suddenly, this awe-inspiring figure appears, this great dragon, Poimandres. Its wings stretching across the sky, light streaming from its body. Poimandres tells Hermes that it's the mind of the universe, the creative intelligence behind everything. Talk about an epic encounter.
Wow, I'm hooked already. What happened next? Did Hermes make a run for it?
Well, Hermes was, understandably, terrified. But he also recognized that this being was divine, and so he bowed down before the dragon. He begged it to reveal the secrets of the universe. And Poimandres, in its infinite wisdom, agreed to share its knowledge with Hermes. It's a story that shows the power of humility, the pursuit of knowledge.
It reminds us that sometimes the greatest knowledge comes from facing our fears, venturing into the unknown. So what secrets did Poimandres reveal? Did it give Hermes a peek into how the universe was created?
It's even more incredible than that. Poimandres told Hermes to hold its image in his mind. And as he did, Hermes witnessed a vision of creation itself. The separation of light and darkness, how the elements were formed, the emergence of life. Imagine seeing the birth of the universe firsthand.
That is such a powerful image. It makes you wonder if these ancient myths are more than just stories. Maybe they're glimpses into the very essence of reality. So what did Hermes make of this vision? Did he understand what he was seeing?
Hermes saw that the light that represented the spiritual universe, while the darkness that surrounded it, swirling and vast, that symbolized material substance, it was a visual representation of the interplay between spirit and matter, that dance of creation and dissolution. That's what's at the very heart of existence.
So even in those early myths, we see this idea of duality, the interaction of opposites, as this fundamental principle of the universe. And from that primal chaos, a holy word emerged, standing on the smoking waters.
That's right. The word rose up like a great pillar. It represents reason, the divine logos. It brings order to chaos. Think of it as the blueprint of creation, separating the waters of light, which form the higher spiritual realms, from the waters of darkness, which give rise to the material world. And from that primal separation, the universe as we know it was born.
It's a beautiful creation myth. It speaks to the power of language and that divine intelligence that flows through everything. But there's a question that's always bothered me about these creation stories. Why are humans deprived of immortality? Why are we stuck with these limitations of time and death?
Hermes, filled with awe, asked Poimandres that very same question. Why should humans be denied immortality just because they're ignorant?
And what did Poimandres say? Did it offer any comfort, any explanation?
Maimonides explained that those who focus only on the material world, on those limitations of the body, those trapped in ignorance, they're essentially worshiping the substance of death.
Hmm.
But those who understand the nature of life and light, the wise ones, they move into the eternity of those divine principles.
So it's about seeing beyond our limited perspective, recognizing that we're inherently divine, and aligning ourselves with those eternal principles that govern the universe. It's a reminder that true immortality isn't found in the physical realm, but in the realm of spirit.
Exactly. And Hermes, he was so deeply moved by this wisdom that he asked how those righteous, wise people actually make that transition to God.
So did Poimandres reveal this secret path, this hidden map to immortality?
The answer was, it was both simple and incredibly profound. Because the Father of all things consists of life and light, whereof man is made. If therefore a man shall learn and understand the nature of life and light, then he shall pass into the eternity of life and light.
It's a beautiful message, so inspiring. It's about recognizing that we're created in the image of the divine. And by understanding and leaving those divine principles, life and light, we can break free from the limitations of mortality. We can achieve true immortality. Okay, let's shift gears for a minute. Let's talk about one of the most enduring structures on Earth, the Great Pyramid.
Yeah.
What do you think its real purpose was? Was it just a tomb for a pharaoh, or is there more to it?
The Great Pyramid has been the source of so many theories. Some see it as a tomb, others an astronomical observatory, and others think it was like a storehouse for ancient wisdom, a time capsule full of knowledge just waiting to be unlocked.
I've even heard people say it was built by aliens, though I'm not sure I buy into that one. But what's undeniable is the engineering. The design, it's incredible. It's so precisely aligned with the cardinal points and that intricate internal structure. It suggests a level of knowledge that goes way beyond, just building a tomb.
It's a marvel. It truly is. It's stood the test of time. It's endured while civilizations have risen and fallen around it. It's like a silent sentinel, a testament to the ingenuity and the spiritual aspirations of those who built it.
And we can't forget the Sphinx, that mysterious creature standing guard near the pyramid. Its face, weathered by time, it seems to hold secrets of the ages.
And while we associate it with ancient Egypt, the Sphinx's architecture, it's more in line with antediluvian structures, the kind you find in different parts of the world. It hints at a connection to a much older civilization.
So the Sphinx might even be older than the Egyptians. That opens up so many possibilities. But those inscriptions between its paws, they say it's an image of the sun god Harmachis, modeled after the pharaoh who built it.
Right. And there's this fascinating story about how Pharaoh Thutmose IV, he restored the Sphinx. He had a dream, you see. The Sphinx complained about being buried in sand. It's like this ancient monument actually spoke to him, asking to be freed from its sandy tomb.
That's such a powerful image, the idea that even these stone monuments can speak, if we listen closely enough. It speaks to how connected everything is, the idea that everything has a spirit, a voice, waiting to be heard.
You're absolutely right. And speaking of the Great Pyramid itself, it's often seen as a symbol of resurrection, regeneration. It represents those eternal principles that stand strong even when civilizations crumble.
I love that interpretation. The pyramid's shape, wide at the base and then tapering to a point, it suggests an ascent from the material world to the spiritual, like a journey of transformation, enlightenment. It's an incredibly potent symbol. It speaks to that human desire to transcend our earthly limits, to achieve a higher state of consciousness.
You're exactly right. And that brings us to another myth that's packed with symbolism. It speaks to the themes of death and rebirth. The story of Osiris, the sun god, his murder by his brother Typhon, and his resurrection by Isis, his wife.
That's a story that's always fascinated me. That God who dies and is reborn, it seems to be a recurring theme in mythology. It makes you wonder if it's a metaphor for something deeper, a reflection of the cycles of nature, or maybe even the human experience itself.
You're right to see those deeper layers of meaning. Osiris, he represents light, truth, and he's murdered by Typhon, who embodies darkness and chaos. His body's dismembered and scattered across the land. It symbolizes how the divine gets fragmented, scattered within the material world.
It's like a story about how spiritual truth can be hidden, obscured in the density of material existence. It makes me think of all those times I felt lost, fragmented, disconnected from my true self.
We've all been there. But then Isis, she represents wisdom and love. She sets out on a quest. To recover the scattered pieces of Osiris, she carefully puts him back together and resurrects him. It symbolizes the reunification of our fragmented self, the victory of light over darkness.
It's a powerful reminder that even when we feel broken, lost, there's always hope for healing, for wholeness. And love, the love of another, the love of the divine, even love for ourselves, it can be the key to healing. Speaking of Isis, I found something interesting about those Egyptian headdresses. The ones that are often so elaborate and ornate, they're thought to represent the auric bodies of these superhuman intelligences, those subtle energies that surround living things. It's something modern science is just beginning to explore. It's like they knew about these energies way back then before we even had the tools to measure them.
And Frank C. Higgins, a scholar of symbolism, he pointed out that some of those headdresses, they're tilted at the same angle as the Earth's axis. It suggests there's a deeper astronomical, maybe even astrological significance there. It's pretty amazing to think they might have understood things like auras long before modern science even considered them.
It's like we're rediscovering these ancient truths, realizing they might have known a lot more than we give them credit for. Let's delve into Isis a bit more. She's often depicted as the world virgin, standing between these two pillars, representing the polarity of nature, the balance of opposites. What do you make of that imagery?
Isis embodies wisdom, understanding. She stands right there at that point of balance, between creation and destruction, between masculine and feminine, those forces that govern the universe. And her golden hair shining in the darkness, it suggests that while she's lunar in nature, her power, it comes from the sun. She symbolizes that feminine principle, illuminated by the masculine. A reminder that true wisdom lies in the harmonious blending of opposites.
I love how these ancient myths often portray truth as existing right there in that space between two seemingly opposite forces. Makes you think about your own life, how you navigate those polarities.
And her emerging from the ocean, it echoes that ancient belief that life started in water, an idea that actually aligns with modern science. It's a beautiful example of how myth and science can actually come together, offering different perspectives on the same basic truths.
It makes you wonder if science is just slowly catching up with what ancient cultures already knew intuitively. Now let's talk about a system that's captivated people for centuries. The zodiac. What's its significance in those esoteric traditions?
The word zodiac itself, it comes from Greek. It means a circle of animals. And it refers to that band of stars that encircle the Earth. They're divided into 12 sections, 12 houses, and each one is associated with a specific constellation. As the sun makes its journey through those houses during the year, it creates the concept of the astrological year, and it gives each sign its unique qualities. But it's not just a Greek concept. Egyptians, Babylonians, and a lot of other cultures, they all recognized the zodiac's importance. It was a universal language for mapping the cosmos, understanding its influence on us.
It's fascinating how these cultures, so far apart, looked at the same sky, saw the same patterns, and they found meaning, guidance in the movements of the stars. It speaks to this shared human desire to understand our place in the universe. Of those 12 signs, Leo has always intrigued me. It's associated with strength, courage, leadership. What makes it so special in esoteric traditions?
Leo, ruled by the sun, it's a fire sign. It's linked to the summer solstice, when the sun's at its peak power. This connection to the sun's radiance is why Leo was revered by ancient cultures. Robert Hewitt Brown, a Masonic scholar, he even wrote that Leo seems to be leading the sun to its highest point, helping it ascend with that powerful paw.
It's like Leo's this cosmic guide, helping the sun reach its full potential. It's a powerful image of empowerment, leadership.
And here's a really interesting thing to think about. Astrologers say that when the age of Aquarius is in full swing, the sun will be in Leo. This could mean that those initiation rituals associated with the grip of the lion's paw, they might make a comeback.
Wow, that is fascinating. It's like the symbolism of Leo is pointing towards a time when humanity will be called to embrace its inner strength, its leadership potential. Okay, let's talk about something that has puzzled scholars for centuries. The Mensa Isiaca. This tablet with all this intricate symbolism, it seems to hold the keys to ancient wisdom.
The Mensa Isiaca is like a puzzle box. It has all this intricate symbolism weaving together astrology, alchemy, esoteric philosophy. It's a key to understanding Chaldean, Egyptian, even Greek theology. But its true meaning, it's still kind of elusive. Even Father Monfalcon, this brilliant Benedictine scholar, he admitted that the Mensa Isiaca was even more obscure than the Sphinx. It's like it holds the blueprint to a whole system of knowledge that's been lost.
Makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden within those ancient artifacts, symbols, just waiting to be deciphered. Okay, let's talk about something a little morbid maybe. Ancient cultures had this practice of sealing lit lamps in tombs. What was the purpose of that?
They believed those lamps would light the path for the deceased in the underworld, guide them through the shadows. And what's really interesting is that there are accounts of these lamps that were still burning when the tombs were opened centuries later. Imagine finding these eternal flames flickering in the darkness after centuries.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? Lamps burning for centuries. It makes you wonder if those ancient cultures knew about some kind of self-renewing fuel, like a perpetual flame that defied time.
It's an idea that's always intrigued alchemists. The dream of mastering fire, creating a lamp that never goes out. Maybe it's a metaphor for that eternal flame of the spirit, that divine spark we all have that can never be extinguished.
That is a beautiful thought. Speaking of seeking wisdom from the unseen realms, let's talk about oracles. The most famous one is probably the Delphic Oracle. Do you think it was really prophecy or something else?
The Delphic Oracle, it was shrouded in mystery. People traveled from all over to hear the pronouncements of the Pythia, the priestess who channeled the voice of Apollo. Some believe she had genuine prophetic abilities, while others think the priest controlled access to the oracle. They interpreted her utterances to suit their own agendas. And then there are those who think that gases coming from the cave might have induced altered states of consciousness, leading to the Pythia's visions. It's hard to say for sure.
It's a fascinating blend of spirituality, mystery, and maybe even a little manipulation. But it's not the only oracle that captured the imaginations of the
ancients. Have you heard about the talking trees of Dodona? They were said to whisper prophecies in the wind.
The talking trees? That sounds like something out of a fairy tale. What's the story there?
So the oracle of Dodona was dedicated to Zeus. And it was believed that he actually spoke through those rustling leaves of the sacred oak trees. Imagine standing in that grove, surrounded by those ancient trees, the wind carrying secrets through their branches. Must have been a powerful experience.
It sounds incredible. I even read that a talking dove was said to, perch on the branches, delivering prophecies. I can totally picture it.
It really highlights that ancient belief in how interconnected everything is, that the divine could speak through anything in nature. And what's really interesting is that the rituals at Dodona, they're very similar to those practiced by the Druids. It makes you think there might be a connection between these two traditions, even though they were geographically far apart. Maybe there's this common thread of nature-based spirituality that runs through them.
Okay, let's talk about something else that's always intrigued me. The tetractys, that symbol used by the Pythagoreans. It's basically a triangle made of 10 dots arranged in 4 rows. But they believed it held all this profound meaning. What's so special about this seemingly simple symbol?
The Pythagoreans, they believed the tetractys revealed the hidden order of the universe. It represents the creation of the cosmos and those divine principles that govern everything. If you connect the dots, you can form 9 triangles. And 6 of those are used to create a cube. And those same triangles, they can also be used to create a 6-pointed star. It's amazing how much meaning, how much symbolism is packed into a simple arrangement of dots.
And it goes beyond just, geometry, right? There are those deeper esoteric interpretations.
Absolutely. The Pythagoreans, they even swore this sacred oath by the tetractys, by him who gave to our soul the tetractys, which hath the fountain and root of ever-springing nature. They saw it as a representation of the divine itself. And from a Kabbalistic perspective, the 3 unused corner dots, they symbolize that threefold, invisible, causal nature of the universe. And the 7 dots used to make the cube and the star, they represent the Elohim, the spirits of those 7 creative periods. It's like a visual representation of the creation myth itself.
It's incredible how such a simple symbol can hold such deep meaning. It reflects both the structure of the universe and that process of creation. It makes me want to grab a pen and paper and start connecting those dots myself.
It's a great way to meditate on the mysteries of creation, on how everything is connected. Speaking of the Pythagoreans and their love for numbers, they had a very unique way of understanding numbers, didn't they?
They were way ahead of their time in a lot of ways. So how did they view numbers? Was it just, about math, or was there something deeper, a more mystical understanding?
For the Pythagoreans, numbers weren't just these abstract symbols. They were reflections of that divine order, of how things really are. They had this clear distinction between the monad, that's the all-encompassing one, representing the source of everything, and number, which represented those individual parts that come from that source. Think of it like the difference between the whole and its parts, the unity that underlies all that diversity.
So it's like a cosmic family
That's
tree,
good,
right?
yeah.
The mona at the top and then all the individual numbers branching out from it. It's a beautiful way to visualize how everything is connected, that unity that's behind all of creation.
And they even categorized even numbers into three types: evenly, evenly odd, and oddly odd. Each one had unique properties that they believed reflected deeper truths about reality.
It's mind-boggling how much depth they found in numbers. Makes you wonder what secrets are still hidden within those numerical patterns of the universe, just waiting for someone who understands their language to unlock them. I even came across some of their ideas about specific numbers, like the number 9.
The number 9, it was like this paradox for the Pythagoreans. On the one hand, they saw it as evil, because it's like an inverted 6. But they also associated it with, like, germinal life, because it kind of resembles a spermatozoon, shows how the same number can be seen as both positive and negative, depending on your perspective.
That's a great point. It reminds us that even the simplest things can have multiple layers of meaning. And what about the number 10? I remember that was a big one for them.
Well, absolutely. The decade, as they called it, it was the greatest number for them. It represented completion, a return to unity after that cycle of 1 through 9. It encompassed all arithmetic and harmonic proportions, symbolizing the perfect order and harmony of the cosmos.
Amazing how they found such profound meaning in numbers. It makes our modern obsession with numbers seem so superficial. Okay, let's shift gears a little. You mentioned this concept earlier, the divine tree within man. It sounds incredibly intriguing.
This idea highlights the dual nature of God and humans. We both have a superior part invisible and an inferior part visible, and there's this middle sphere that connects them, like a bridge between the spiritual and the material, where heaven and earth meet inside each of us.
That's a beautiful image. It makes me think of the saying, as above, so below, the idea that the human being is a microcosm, reflecting the macrocosm of the universe.
Exactly. And just as God's spiritual nature governs the universe, which is like this crystallized idea, the spiritual nature of a person governs their physical body. It's that microcosm-macrocosm relationship, a reflection of the divine within each of us.
Our bodies are like temples, housing that divine spark. And just like the material universe is contained within the universal spirit, our physical forms are contained within our spirit. It's a reminder that we're more than just flesh and bone. Our true nature is vast, limitless.
Absolutely. We're spiritual beings having this human experience. Now, let's talk about an allegory that's central to Masonic teachings, the story of Hiram Abiff, the master builder who's murdered and then resurrected.
It's a story that's always captivated my imagination, full of symbolism and mystery. So who was Hiram, and what does his story really represent?
Hiram represents truth, wisdom. He's that divine architect behind the Temple of Solomon, which itself is a symbol of spiritual enlightenment. But he's betrayed, murdered by these three ruffians who represent ignorance, superstition, greed, those forces that try to destroy truth and hold back humanity's spiritual progress.
It's a tragic story, but like a lot of myths, it doesn't end there, does it?
No, thankfully not. Hiram's raised from the dead. It symbolizes the triumph of light over darkness, the resurrection of truth. It's this powerful message of hope, a reminder that even when things are really rough, truth will win out in the end.
There's also that cosmic interpretation of the Hiramic legend. It's pretty fascinating.
Oh, you're right. Hiram represents the sun in that interpretation.
Yeah.
And it's symbolically slain by the autumn months, right? It lies dormant during the winter, and then it's resurrected in the spring. It's like an allegory for the death and rebirth of nature. Even in the darkest depths of winter, there's the promise of renewal waiting.
It makes you appreciate those cycles of life, the ebb and flow of energy, that death and rebirth that's woven into everything. And speaking of renewal and the importance of beauty, you mentioned that beauty played a big role in ancient religions. It wasn't just about, aesthetics.
The savior gods of the ancient world, they weren't just powerful. They were also incredibly beautiful. And their work involved beauty. They wanted to uplift humanity by awakening that love of beauty within us. The Dionysiac architects, for instance, they believed that creating beautiful buildings, it could evoke the spirit of the martyred beautifier, that divine spark hidden within the material world.
It's a beautiful concept. It makes you think about the role of art, the role of beauty in our lives, how it can inspire us, uplift us, connect us to something greater than ourselves.
Exactly. It's about seeing and appreciating beauty everywhere, from the grandeur of nature to the subtle beauty in everyday moments. The story of the Dionysiac architects, it reminds me of what happened to the mysteries. They were suppressed, destroyed in the end, what led to their downfall.
It's a sad chapter in human history. The mysteries, they encouraged ethical behavior, and they held ancient wisdom. But they were seen as a threat to those in power. Their teachings were suppressed and eventually wiped out.
It reminds us how easily knowledge can be lost, you know, and how those in power, they often fear the transformative power of wisdom, of truth. But that Masonic belief that by raising Hiram we reveal the lost word, it offers some hope. It suggests that the wisdom of the mysteries can be rediscovered, that their resurrection could lead to a spiritual rebirth, restoring harmony to the world.
It's a powerful image. Raising Hiram from the dead. It symbolizes bringing back that lost knowledge, restoring spiritual truth. It makes you wonder if we're on the verge of something like that today, with so many people looking for, different paths to spirituality, for a deeper understanding of the universe.
Maybe we are. And this idea of bringing back the mysteries, it's reflected in this vision of a future university, one that's dedicated to teaching symbolism, showing how it's the key to understanding the universe. Imagine a place where students can learn the language of the cosmos, where they can explore those hidden meanings behind myths, symbols, rituals. It would be like a modern-day mystery school, reviving the wisdom of the ages and using it to face the challenges of today.
That's a beautiful vision. It makes me think of all the universities that are starting to offer courses on mythology, symbolism, those ancient wisdom traditions. Maybe we're already, laying the foundation for that future university without even realizing it. It's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is. It reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge, it never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to discover.
Speaking of discovery, let's talk about the elements. They're more than just, physical substances, aren't they? There's a whole symbolic dimension to them that we often miss.
Absolutely. In ancient teachings, the elements are like these crystallized celestial rays, emanations from the stars and planets, shaping the material world. And each element has specific qualities that affect our well-being.
So we're literally made of stardust, a reflection of the cosmos within us.
Exactly. And the alchemists believed these elements could be transmuted, not just physically, but spiritually too. They saw that transmutation process as a metaphor for the transformation of the soul, from base desires and ignorance to enlightenment and spiritual perfection.
Fascinating how they saw the outer world as a reflection of the inner. The transformation of matter mirroring the transformation of the soul. And they had this whole system of correspondences between the elements and the planets, right? Like iron being linked to Mars, the god of war.
That's right. Copper was connected to Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. Lead was linked to Saturn, the god of time and karma. And the Egyptians went even further. They assigned specific metals to the bones of their gods. It suggests that there's a divine presence even within the physical world.
It's like they saw the divine in everything, even in those seemingly ordinary elements of the world. Okay, let's venture into something that's often misunderstood, ceremonial magic. Can you tell us about the rituals and the different types of magic?
Ceremonial magic, it involves these specific rituals, symbols, incantations. It's all about calling upon spirits and harnessing those occult forces. A deep understanding of symbolism, astrology, the subtle energies that govern the universe. It's complex, it can be dangerous, and there's a big emphasis on caution, on being careful. They recognize that misusing these forces can have serious consequences.
So it's not something to be taken lightly. It's like playing with fire. You have to know what you're doing or you could get burned.
Exactly. There are stories of black magicians becoming occult vampires, stealing life force from others to fuel their own dark desires. Medieval legends even describe them transforming into werewolves, preying on innocent people, draining their blood to gain power, to extend their own lives.
That's pretty dark. It's a reminder that knowledge, power, it can be used for good or evil. And we have to consider the ethics when dealing with these occult forces.
Absolutely. It's about using power responsibly. Understanding that our actions have consequences, both in the seen and unseen realms.
So how does someone practice ceremonial magic? What are the basic steps?
Well, those who practice ceremonial magic, they often follow specific rituals. They're outlined in these ancient texts called grimoires. The rituals usually involve creating a sacred circle, consecrating tools and vestments, and using specific names and incantations to call upon the spirits they want to work with. It's a demanding practice. It takes intense focus, mental discipline.
Like a carefully choreographed dance, balancing human will with the forces of the unseen world. It's fascinating, but also kind of intimidating.
The magician has to be prepared, both physically and mentally. They need to be able to handle the presence of those powerful entities. It's not for everyone, that's for sure. But for those who want to explore the hidden dimensions of reality, to tap into the power beyond the veil, it's a path they might choose.
It makes you wonder what secrets are still hidden in those ancient grimoires, just waiting to be rediscovered. Okay, let's talk about those beings that are said to live within the elements, the elementals.
Paracelsus, the physician and alchemist, he categorized them into 4 types. Nymphs, who live in the water, sylphs, who are in the air, gnomes, who live in the earth, and salamanders, who live in fire. Each one embodies those unique qualities and powers of their element.
It's like imagining each element having its own spiritual guardians, beings of pure energy, living in a realm we can't normally see. What a fantastic concept.
Paracelsus believed that each elemental is bound to its element, and they experience it the way we experience air. It's invisible and breathable to them, just like our atmosphere is to us. They're pure energy beings, living in a dimension we can't perceive with our physical senses.
That opens up so many possibilities. To think that there could be whole worlds existing alongside ours, invisible but full of life, is incredible. Of all the elementals, I've always been fascinated by gnomes. They're often seen as these guardians of treasures living deep underground. What's their story?
Gnomes, they're fascinating. Often depicted as these small men with beards guarding the earth's treasures. Minerals, precious stones, those hidden veins of gold. They're said to live in caves, tunnels, working away in the darkness.
They sound like the dwarves from Norse mythology. Skilled craftsmen, keepers of the earth's hidden riches.
Right. But there are different beliefs about their nature. Some traditions see them as friendly, helpful to humans, willing to share their knowledge and wisdom with those who treat them with respect. Others see them as tricksters, mischievous, always playing pranks.
Like they embody the duality of the earth itself, both nurturing and potentially dangerous.
Exactly. And it said that if you want to work with them, you have to be very careful not to break their trust, not to try to trick them. They're powerful beings. You got to treat them with respect.
It's a reminder to approach nature with humility and reverence, to acknowledge the intelligence and power in all living things. What about sylphs, the elementals of air? They seem much more ethereal and elusive than gnomes.
Sylphs are often described as beautiful, graceful beings. They can take on human form, but they're also known for being changeable, even eccentric. They're associated with inspiration, creativity, that realm of dreams and imagination.
So they're like the muses in Greek mythology, whispering creative ideas to artists and poets and musicians.
Precisely. And Paracelsus believed they were involved in those oracles of the ancients, speaking through the rustling leaves of sacred trees or whispers of the wind. He even thought they might be behind that talking dove of Dodona.
It's like they're the voice of the wind itself, carrying messages from unseen realms, inspiring us with their whispers. I can see why artists and dreamers would be drawn to their energy.
But their influence can be a blessing and a curse. While sylphs can inspire brilliance and creativity, their fickle nature can also lead to inconsistency, unpredictability. Inspiration, it can be fleeting. And even the most talented artists are at the mercy of those creative ebbs and flows.
It's like riding a wave. Sometimes you're soaring, sometimes you're wiping out. But it's all part of the journey, right?
Okay, let's talk about Paracelsus himself. He was a fascinating guy, a physician, an alchemist, and kind of a rebel, challenging the medical establishment of his time. What made him so unique?
Paracelsus, he was a true maverick. He believed that real healing meant understanding the root causes of illness, not just treating the symptoms. He was way ahead of his time, a pioneer of holistic medicine. He saw the human body as this microcosm of the universe, governed by the same laws that govern the cosmos.
He was so ahead of his time in so many ways, recognizing that mind, body, and spirit, they're all connected. And he didn't hold back when it came to criticizing the medical practices of his day. He was quite outspoken, wasn't he? He really went after the medical establishment, accusing a lot of doctors of harming their patients more than helping them. He wrote some scathing critiques. He even said that some physicians cared more about making money than about the well-being of their patients. He believed a true physician should be a servant of nature, guiding and directing her healing power, not messing with it.
It's amazing how relevant his criticisms still are today. We're still having the same debate about the best way to approach healthcare. Do we focus on symptoms or do we go after the root cause? I think Paracelsus would have a lot to say about that.
Oh, I think you'd fit right into those conversations about holistic health and alternative medicine. And speaking of his approach to healing, Paracelsus came up with these 7 methods for treating illness. Each one addressed a different part of a person, with the goal of restoring balance and harmony.
Those 7 methods sound intriguing. Can you tell us more?
The first one involved using the power of the stars and planets. recognizing their influence on human health. The second one focused on the healing power of words, prayers, incantations, things like that. The third method used the powers of minerals to restore balance to the body. The fourth drew on the healing properties of herbs and plants. The fifth emphasized the power of prayer and faith to help healing. The sixth involved using the imagination, visualization, to influence the body's energy and promote well-being. And the seventh method, the most important one, the one that was hardest to master, involved using love and compassion to heal both the individual and the world around them.
That's a truly holistic approach, seeing that healing has to address the physical, mental, and spiritual parts of a person.
He saw true healing as an art. It required not just knowledge, but intuition, compassion, and a deep connection to the forces of nature.
Okay, let's talk about the Sefer Yetzirah. It's a foundational text of Kabbalah. It's a book I've always been curious about, but it always seemed a bit intimidating. What are some key concepts that someone should know about this text?
The Sefer Yetzirah, it means the Book of Formation. And it might be short, but it's profound. It explores how the universe was created through the combination and permutation of Hebrew letters. It's really important for understanding Kabbalistic thought, which sees the universe as this tapestry woven from language and divine energy.
So it's like the Hebrew alphabet is this cosmic code, a language you can use to create and manipulate reality.
That's a great way to put it. Each letter has a specific power. It corresponds to a particular aspect of the cosmos. By understanding the properties of the letters, how they interact, the Kabbalists can tap into those creative forces of the universe, unlock hidden knowledge.
I also came across this idea that sacred books, like the Bible, aren't meant to be taken literally as historical accounts, but rather as allegories, representations of human attributes. Is that a common idea in Kabbalah?
Absolutely. Kabbalah emphasizes the symbolic, metaphorical meaning of sacred texts. It encourages us to look beyond the surface, to find those deeper truths. Take the word Elohim, often translated as God. In Kabbalah, it represents the androgynous, creative agencies of the universe, not a singular masculine deity.
So it's a reminder that the divine isn't limited by gender, that both masculine and feminine energies are necessary for creation.
And the Sefer Yetzirah highlights how the universe was formed through the interaction of these masculine and feminine principles, a dance of polarities that gave rise to all those different forms we see around us. It's a beautiful way to understand that creative power of duality.
Okay, let's explore another central concept in Kabbalah, Adam Kadmon, the heavenly man.
Adam Kadmon is like the archetype of humanity, the blueprint for creation, containing the potential for all things.
So he's like the perfect human, that ideal we all strive to embody?
And Adam Kadmon is often depicted as the Sephirothic tree. It's this diagram that maps the 10 Sephiroth emanations of divine energy onto the human form. Imagine a tree growing inside you, each branch a different aspect of your being. That's Adam Kadmon. Each Sephirah corresponds to a specific part of the body, connecting the universe, the macrocosm, to the human being, the microcosm.
It's like a cosmic map, a guide to understanding how everything is connected and our place in that divine order. And there's a link here to that biblical story of Adam and Eve, isn't there?
Yes. The fall of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden can be seen as this allegory for the soul's descent into matter, that separation from our divine source. And that quest for redemption, to return to unity with God, it's central to both Kabbalah and Christian thought.
Okay, let's talk about tarot. It's often associated with fortune-telling, but it also has this deep esoteric meaning.
The tarot is this ancient system of symbolism. It might have originated in Egypt, and it's deeply connected to Kabbalah. It's basically a book of wisdom, but it's encoded in images and archetypes. It's a visual representation of our journey toward enlightenment.
And it's divided into two main parts, right? The major arcana and the minor arcana.
Exactly. The major arcana, those are the trump cards. They represent those big life lessons, those archetypal energies, those universal patterns that shape our lives. And the minor arcana is divided into 4 suits. They represent those more everyday experiences and challenges we face.
And each card is packed with symbolism, open to interpretation and personal reflection.
That's what's so beautiful about tarot. It's like a mirror reflecting our soul back to us. It offers guidance, insights as we navigate life. It's not really about predicting the future. It's about understanding ourselves, the forces that are at play in our lives.
Okay, let's take a closer look at one of the most recognizable cards, the Fool.
The Fool. He represents that very beginning of the spiritual journey. The initiate who's about to embark on this path of self-discovery. He's often shown as a carefree wanderer, stepping off a cliff. He doesn't even seem to notice the danger. But he's also full of innocence, wonder. He trusts the universe to guide him,
He's a symbol of that leap of faith, that willingness to embrace the unknown, trust the journey, even if you can't see where it's going. It's a reminder that sometimes we need to just let go and surrender to the flow of life.
His journey through the major arcana, it's like an allegory for the soul's ascent through those different levels of consciousness. He faces all these challenges, temptations along the way, but ultimately, he's striving for enlightenment, for union with the divine.
It's like the hero's journey, that quest for self-realization, spiritual fulfillment. It's challenging, but it's ultimately rewarding. What about those four suits in the minor arcana? What do they represent?
The four suits are full of symbolism. They're connected to the four elements, the four corners of creation, even the four worlds of Kabbalah. They represent different aspects of human experience, our endeavors. Cups, they symbolize our emotions, relationships. Swords represent our thoughts, our intellect. Pentacles stand for material possessions, finances, and wands represent creativity, our actions.
And they're also connected to the four-letter name of God, the tetragrammaton, aren't they? It adds another level of meaning.
You got it. Each suit corresponds to one of those letters in the tetragrammaton, YHVH. That connection deepens the symbolism, links tarot back to the mystical traditions of Judaism.
Okay, let's change gears a bit and talk about the tabernacle, that sacred structure from the Old Testament. I've always been fascinated by its design, the rituals performed inside.
The tabernacle was this portable temple used by the Israelites while they were wandering in the wilderness. It was considered the dwelling place of God, the sacred space where they could connect with the divine.
And the way it was constructed, the layout, it was all very specific, right? It wasn't just a random tent. It was designed to reflect this cosmic order, like a microcosm of the universe.
Exactly. The dimensions, the materials they used, it was all loaded with symbolic meaning. It was divided into two main chambers. You had the holy place, which held the seven-branched candlestick, the table of shewbread, and the altar of burnt incense. And then you had the Holy of Holies, which housed the Ark of the Covenant.
And the Holy of Holies was the most sacred space in the whole tabernacle. Only the high priest could enter, and only once a year on the Day of Atonement.
That's right. It was believed to be the actual presence chamber of God, the point where heaven and earth meet. And the Ark of the Covenant, it held the Ten Commandments. It was a symbol of God's covenant with his people.
And the high priest's garments were also incredibly elaborate, symbolic.
Absolutely. The high priest's clothing was designed to reflect God's glory and his role as a go-between, between the divine and the human realms. You had the breastplate with 12 gemstones, each one representing one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the ephod, this richly embroidered thing worn over the robe, and the mitre, that head covering with a golden plate inscribed with the words, "Holiness to the Lord." Every single part of those garments was meaningful. They represented different parts of the cosmos, the divine order.
It's amazing how every detail of the tabernacle, how it was built, the priest's clothes, everything was filled with symbolism. It shows that ancient belief that the spiritual world is woven into the material world. Okay, let's unravel another mystery. The Rosicrucians. A secretive order, surrounded by all this speculation and intrigue.
The Rosicrucians, their origins are a bit of a puzzle. There are all these theories about their founder, Christian Rosicrucian, and their teachings. Some people think they were a real group that started in the 15th century, while others see them as more of a philosophical, spiritual tradition that exists outside of time and place.
And their symbol, the rose and the cross, it's so powerful, suggests this blending of the spiritual and earthly, a union of opposites.
The Fama Fraternitatis, one of the earliest Rosicrucian writings, describes their mission as reforming the world through divine wisdom. They saw themselves as agents of positive change. They wanted to restore harmony and balance to a world that had lost its way.
Like they were these guardians of ancient knowledge, working in secret to steer humanity towards a better future, kind of like spiritual secret agents.
That's a great analogy. And the story of Christian Rosicrucian's tomb, it's especially intriguing. It was said to have been found 120 years after his death, hidden inside this structure called the House of the Holy Spirit. Imagine finding that. A secret tomb hidden for over a century, filled with the lost knowledge of this mysterious order. It sounds like something straight out of an Indiana Jones movie.
It definitely sparks the imagination. So what was inside the tomb? What secrets did it hold?
The inscription on his tomb, it speaks volumes. It says, "I have lived, I am dead, I shall live again." It hints at this belief in reincarnation, the idea that consciousness continues beyond physical death. And the rose is so central to the Rosicrucians. It represents the unfolding of the spirit, that blossoming of the soul as it moves towards enlightenment.
And that red color of the rose, it's also linked to the blood of Christ, right?
Exactly. It symbolizes sacrifice, compassion, that divine love that redeems humanity. And the golden heart, often depicted at the center of the rose, that represents the spiritual gold within each of us, the divine spark.
It's a beautiful reminder that true wealth isn't about material possessions, but about cultivating spiritual virtues and realizing our inherent divinity.
And a rose has 10 petals, which connects back to the Pythagorean decade, representing completion, a return to unity. It's all connected.
It's incredible how all these seemingly different threads come together, creating this tapestry of meaning. It makes you wonder if there's some hidden order to the universe, a grand design that we're just starting to glimpse. Okay, let's talk about this magic writing the Rosicrucians said they had. What was that all about?
They taught that this magic writing was based on a divine alphabet, a language that allowed them to read God's will in nature. They thought it was a form of communication that predated Babel, that time when language was confused. It was like a direct link to the divine mind.
It's like a lost language of creation, a way of understanding the universe through its inherent symbolism.
They saw the Bible as the key to this language. They believed its true meaning was often hidden, only accessible to those who knew how to look deeper.
Like there was a secret code within the scriptures waiting to be cracked.
Exactly. They claimed this magic writing allowed them to predict the future, much like astronomers predict eclipses. They even claimed to know the timing of what they called the obscurations of the church and how long they would last.
It's like they saw themselves as spiritual seers, able to glimpse the patterns of history, the unfolding of some divine plan.
They encouraged those who wanted to join their order to really study the scriptures, not just read them, but contemplate them, seek to live by their teachings.
So it wasn't just intellectual, it was about embodying that spiritual wisdom in everyday life.
Precisely. They believe that true wisdom comes from meditation, observation, experience, not just book learning.
Okay, let's explore that Kabbalistic concept of shamim, that divine, fiery energy that permeates creation. Can you tell us more about this energy?
Shamim is like the ocean of spirit. It's the source of all energy, all life in the universe. It's that divine fire that drives creation, the life force that sustains and transforms everything.
It's the cosmic energy that connects everything, the lifeblood of the universe flowing through all beings.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Kabbalistic diagrams often show Shemayim flowing through these series of spheres. It creates the elements and gives rise to all the different forms we see in the material world.
It's amazing how Shamayim flows through everything, like a cascading waterfall of energy. It descends from those highest spiritual realms to the lowest material planes, animating everything, sustaining everything. It's such a powerful image of how connected everything is.
It is. And that divine energy is present within us too, waiting to be awakened and cultivated through spiritual practices and the pursuit of enlightenment.
Okay, let's talk about those alchemists and their quest to turn base metals into gold. Was it really just about getting rich, or was there something deeper behind those experiments?
The alchemists, their work was often misinterpreted. Some of them were definitely interested in the physical transformation of metals, sure. But the real alchemists, they saw this process as a metaphor for the spiritual transformation of the human soul.
So it wasn't about, becoming wealthy. It was about achieving this state of spiritual perfection embodied in that legendary philosopher's stone, right?
Exactly. The philosopher's stone, they said it could turn lead into gold, but it really represented the perfected human soul, the embodiment of wisdom, compassion, and spiritual enlightenment.
And the alchemical process itself, with all those intricate steps and that symbolic language, it was like a map for that inner journey of transformation, a guide to help us navigate the challenges and pitfalls on that path to enlightenment.
And one of the most famous alchemical texts is the Ripley Scroll. It's this series of allegorical images depicting the stages of that alchemical process, full of cryptic symbols, enigmatic figures, like a visual puzzle waiting to be solved.
I love that image of alchemy as this map for inner transformation. It reminds us that true growth often involves going through a kind of purification, refinement, just like those base metals being transformed into gold.
In some of the key symbols of the Ripley Scroll, you have the king and queen representing the sun and moon, the masculine and feminine principles. You have the green lion symbolizing primal matter or raw potential. And then there's the pelican representing nourishment, spiritual sustenance.
Okay, let's Let's switch gears for a moment and talk about something a little different. There's this theory out there that William Shakespeare might not have actually written all those plays and sonnets attributed to him. What do you think about that?
That debate has been going on forever. Some scholars believe that Sir Francis Bacon, the philosopher, scientist, writer, they think he might have been the real author, using Shakespeare as a pen name to hide his identity.
That's quite a conspiracy theory. Why would Bacon do that? Wouldn't he want the credit for those amazing works?
There are a few different theories. Some think it was because of the political climate at the time, or maybe there was a social stigma around playwriting among the upper class. Others believe Bacon was involved in secret societies and used the plays to hide messages.
So the plays could be more than just entertainment. They could be holding hidden knowledge, just waiting for someone who knows how to decode it.
Bacon was definitely a literary genius, and he loved cryptography. And there are some really interesting similarities between his known work and the themes and ideas explored in the Shakespearean plays.
And didn't Bacon say something kind of cryptic in his will that fueled all this speculation?
Oh yeah, he wrote that his name and memory would belong to succeeding ages after some time had elapsed. It definitely makes you wonder, like he might have left behind a secret body of work to be revealed later.
Okay, let's talk about Freemasonry. It's an organization that's often connected to those ancient mysteries and esoteric traditions. What's their link to this hidden wisdom?
Freemasonry, it's a fraternal organization with roots that go all the way back to those guilds of stonemasons in the Middle Ages. But their rituals and symbols, they're just steeped in the symbolism and mysticism of ancient cultures. It makes you think they were deliberately trying to preserve and transmit that ancient wisdom.
So it's like a modern-day mystery school, carrying on the traditions of the ancients in this veiled, symbolic form.
And some believe that Sir Francis Bacon, he had a hand in shaping modern Freemasonry. They think he used it to carry on that ancient wisdom. Some scholars even propose that he hid knowledge in ciphers and cryptograms within those Masonic rituals and texts.
It's like a secret society within a secret society, a whole hidden layer of knowledge that only those who can crack the code can access.
And this idea of Freemasonry being this keeper of ancient wisdom, it's supported by the fact that their rituals and symbols have elements from so many cultures and traditions, from ancient Egypt to Greece and beyond.
It's like a melting pot of esoteric knowledge, a tapestry woven from the threads of ancient wisdom from all over the world.
And that concept of the unfinished temple, it's central to Masonic symbolism. It represents that ongoing quest for enlightenment, building a better world.
So it's not just about personal transformation, it's about working together to create a more harmonious and enlightened society. A pretty noble goal.
Okay, since we're talking about hidden knowledge, let's talk about cryptography.
Cryptography, that's the art of encoding and decoding secret messages. It's played a huge role throughout history, not just in the military or diplomacy, but also in protecting esoteric knowledge. It's a way to communicate without being understood by those who don't have the key. It's like a secret language, a way to whisper truth so that only those meant to hear it can understand.
Like Sir Francis Bacon's biliteral cipher, it used two different fonts, just slightly different, to hide messages within regular text. And even illustrations, they can have multiple layers of meaning. There are real significance hidden from those who aren't trained to see it.
It's like a visual puzzle, a riddle waiting to be solved by those who can see beyond the surface.
Studying cryptography can be pretty rewarding. It gives you a glimpse into the minds of those who wanted to preserve wisdom, to protect it from being misused.
Makes you wonder what secrets are still out there, hidden in ancient texts and symbols, just waiting for the right person to come along and crack the code. Okay, let's go back to architecture for a moment. You mentioned those Dionysiac architects earlier, those master builders of ancient Rome. They weren't just skilled craftsmen, were they?
No, those Dionysiac architects, they were more than just builders. They were part of this tradition that went back to that ancient Ionian institution. They carried the knowledge of sacred geometry, symbolism. They were artists, spiritual seekers. They used their skills to create structures that reflected the harmony and beauty of the cosmos.
So they weren't just building things, they were creating spaces that resonated with a deeper spiritual energy. It's like they were weaving magic into their work.
And their influence on Masonic symbolism and rituals is undeniable. Many of the symbols and ceremonies you see in Freemasonry today, they come from that Dionysiac tradition, especially the ones related to architecture and sacred geometry.
It's like they passed their knowledge and insights down through the ages. Okay, let's talk about a mystery that's confused people for centuries. We're told that Jesus lived for 33 years, But I've read that early Christian writings suggest he might have lived much longer. What's the story there?
It's a strange discrepancy, isn't it? The Bible tells us Jesus' ministry lasted just a few years, but those early Christian writings hint at a much longer life. Irenaeus, a Christian writer from the 2nd century, stated that the disciples themselves said that Jesus lived to an old age. And that statement's from a time pretty close to the events, within 80 years of St. John's death.
So is it possible that the number 33 was chosen for symbolic reasons? Maybe to match patterns established by other savior gods or to make certain theological points?
It's definitely possible. And it raises interesting questions about how narratives are shaped over time and how our view of history can be influenced by those who write it down.
It's a good reminder to question what we're told, to look beyond the surface and consider other points of view. And speaking of perspectives, there's this distinction made in esoteric traditions between the historical Jesus and the concept of the Christos. Can you explain that a bit?
The Christos, in esoteric traditions, represents that perfected human, that embodiment of spiritual enlightenment. It's this archetype that's been expressed through different savior gods throughout history.
So it's not about one specific person. It's about a state of being, a level of consciousness, something attainable by anyone who follows that path of spiritual transformation.
Exactly. And those 33 years associated with Jesus' life, they could symbolize the stages of initiation someone goes through to achieve Christhood. It culminates in this symbolic ascension to a higher realm, a return to unity with the divine.
It makes you wonder if the stories of those savior gods, whether it's Jesus, Osiris, or others, are really allegories about that inner journey of transformation we all go through.
There are definitely parallels between Jesus' story and other myths about initiation. Like the Masonic allegory of Hiram Abiff, they both offer this roadmap for spiritual growth, highlighting those challenges and triumphs along the way to enlightenment.
Okay, let's talk about someone who's always fascinated me. Merlin, that enigmatic magician from those Arthurian legends. What's the esoteric meaning of his character?
Merlin embodies wisdom, magic. He's like this bridge between humans and the supernatural. He's often portrayed as this wise old wizard who understands nature's secrets. But his origins are mysterious. One legend says he was born to a human mother and a demon father. It represents that duality within him, his ability to tap into both light and dark forces.
So he represents that potential we all have to choose our path, to use our power for good or for evil, regardless of where we come from or the challenges we face.
Exactly. And despite his connection to those demonic forces, Merlin chooses to serve good. He guides King Arthur, helps establish this reign of justice and righteousness. It's a powerful reminder that we always have the power to choose our own path. And his birth can be seen as an allegory for initiation into the mysteries. Nature's the mother, and wisdom, often symbolized by the serpent, becomes the father.
Speaking of those Arthurian legends, we can't forget the Holy Grail. What does this mysterious object represent in those esoteric traditions?
The Holy Grail, it's often depicted as a cup, a chalice. It has these miraculous powers. Its true nature remains a mystery, but it's definitely associated with spiritual enlightenment, with the search for truth.
It's such a powerful symbol. It's captivated people for centuries. It makes you wonder, is it a real object or is it a metaphor for something deeper, like spiritual fulfillment, the realization of our true potential?
The Grail can be seen as a representation of that divine essence that's within everything, the source of spiritual nourishment, of immortality. And the quest for the Grail, it's a metaphor for the soul's journey towards enlightenment, the path to truth. It's often dangerous, full of trials and temptations. It takes courage, persistence, and a willingness to face our own darkness.
It makes you think about your own life. What are the grails you're searching for? What are those things that would bring you fulfillment, spiritual wholeness? And what trials are you facing on your own quest for truth?
It's a great question to reflect on. And it's interesting how the Grail legend hasn't really received much attention, despite its obvious connections to that Christos mystery. It makes you think there might be even deeper layers of meaning there, just waiting to be explored and understood.
Like the Grail's still holding on to its secrets, waiting for the right moment to reveal its full meaning. Maybe it's waiting for us to evolve, to be ready to receive its wisdom.
And the similarities between that quest for the Grail and the Masonic search for the lost word, they're striking. Both represent the pursuit of ultimate truth, the key to unlock the mysteries of the universe, to achieve spiritual perfection.
Okay, let's talk about another symbol we see in different cultures and religions, halos. What's the esoteric meaning behind those glowing rings of light around the heads of holy figures?
Halos, sometimes called nimbuses or aureoles, They represent that divine light that radiates from those who've achieved spiritual enlightenment. Think of it like the soul's radiance, the inner sun shining brightly in those who've awakened to their true nature.
And there's so many different types of halos, you know? Circular ones, lozenge-shaped ones, halos with rays. It makes you wonder if each one has a specific meaning.
Oh, the symbolism is incredibly complex and diverse. Circular halos are usually connected to the sun, masculine energy, while those lozenge-shaped ones, they're called vesica piscis, and they're linked to the moon, feminine energy. Then you have halos with straight rays, which are solar, and those with curved rays, which are lunar. And if you have both straight and curved rays, that represents the harmony between those two principles.
It's amazing how even those seemingly simple details in religious art can be so rich in symbolism, like a secret language waiting to be understood.
And what's interesting is that circular halos are traditionally considered masculine, while those lozenge-shaped halos are seen as feminine. This gender symbolism reflects how the ancients understood that interplay between masculine and feminine principles, both in the cosmos and within us.
Like those ancient cultures understood that balance is key, that we need both masculine and feminine energies for wholeness and harmony. Okay, let's switch gears again. Let's talk about that story of Seth's journey to the Garden of Eden. It's a story that's been passed down through different mystical traditions. What's its significance?
The story tells of Adam on his deathbed. He sends his son, Seth, back to the Garden of Eden to get the oil of mercy to ease his suffering. Seth finds the garden, but the angel guarding it won't give him the oil. Instead, he gives Seth 3 seeds from the tree of life.
It's like a symbolic quest, isn't it? A journey back to the source of creation, searching for healing, redemption.
Exactly. And when Seth plants those seeds in his father's mouth after he dies, they grow into this sapling with 3 trunks, absorbing Adam's life force. Noah eventually takes this sapling onto the ark, so it's safe during the flood, and later he plants it on Mount Lebanon.
It's such a beautiful symbol of resilience, the continuity of life, the passing down of wisdom through generations, even in the face of those huge, catastrophic changes. It's a reminder that even when things are really dark, there's always hope for renewal, for the preservation of what's sacred.
And it connects back to the idea of the tree of life as a symbol of spiritual growth, enlightenment, that connection to the divine source.
Yeah.
Speaking of preserving knowledge, the destruction of those ancient libraries, like the one at Alexandria, is one of the biggest tragedies in history. Think about all that wisdom that was lost, all those texts about the mysteries, about the esoteric teachings of those ancient cultures.
It's heartbreaking to think about all that lost knowledge. It makes you wonder what mysteries were contained in those texts, how our understanding of history might be different if we still had them.
But maybe there's still hope. Some people believe that some of those lost texts might still be out there, hidden away in forgotten archives, secret libraries, maybe in Egypt, maybe in India, just waiting to be rediscovered.
That is a tantalizing thought. Imagine finding a lost library filled with scrolls, texts with wisdom that's been hidden for centuries. It would be like finding a treasure chest of knowledge. It could completely change how we understand the past.
And imagine what it could tell us about those connections between paganism and Christianity. It could show us that flow of spiritual wisdom through different traditions. Maybe they're not as different as we think. Okay, let's talk about one of the most enduring symbols in human history. The cross.
It's a symbol that has such a powerful emotional impact. It holds deep meaning for so many people, even those who aren't Christian.
In Christianity, the cross, it represents Christ's sacrifice, those burdens we all have to carry in life. It's a reminder of humility, patience, the transformative power of suffering.
But that symbol of the cross, it predates Christianity, doesn't it? I've seen it in other cultures, other traditions.
Oh, absolutely. It's a universal symbol. You find it everywhere in ancient cultures. Some scholars believe it originally represented things like the equinoxes and solstices, the 4 cardinal directions, the cyclical journey of the sun.
So its meaning has evolved over time as different cultures have adopted and reinterpreted it. It reminds us that symbols, they're fluid, dynamic. Their meaning changes depending on the context.
Speaking of powerful symbols, the book of Revelation describes a woman clothed with the sun. She's standing on the moon, crowned with 12 stars. What do you think about that imagery?
It's such a striking image. She seems to represent both this cosmic power and a sense of mystery.
She's this multifaceted symbol. She represents the constellation Virgo and the Egyptian goddess Isis. She's about to give birth to Horus. She embodies the divine feminine, the creative power of the universe, the promise of renewal and rebirth.
Like she's giving birth to a new era, a new consciousness.
Exactly. And the book of Revelation also talks about the New Jerusalem, this city of perfect beauty and harmony descending from heaven to earth.
It's like a utopian vision, a symbol of the kingdom of God on earth.
That New Jerusalem, it represents a spiritual state, one that we can achieve here and now through the efforts of those who've awakened to their true nature, who are working to make the world more just, more compassionate. They're the living stones in the walls of that New Jerusalem. Their actions are paving the way for a new golden age. And that river of crystal flowing from God's throne, it represents that spiritual doctrine, the living water that nourishes and sustains the soul.
It's a beautiful reminder that what truly sustains us, it doesn't come from material things, but from our connection to the divine, to that inner source of wisdom and love. Okay, let's talk about the Prophet Muhammad and the rise of Islam, a faith that's often misunderstood, especially in the West.
Muhammad is seen as a prophet in Islam, the messenger of God who received those divine revelations that make up the Quran. His first followers were his closest friends and family, those who knew him best and believed in his message. It speaks to his sincerity and the transformative power of his teachings.
It's a reminder that true spiritual teachings, they often have the most impact on those closest to the source, those who can see the truth reflected in the teacher's life.
And the Hijra, that's Muhammad's flight from Mecca to escape persecution. It was a turning point for Islam.
Yeah.
It led to the creation of that first Muslim community in Medina and then eventually to the spread of Islam throughout Arabia and beyond.
And speaking of Mecca, let's talk about the Kaaba, that cube-shaped structure, the holiest site in Islam.
The Kaaba has a long and interesting history. It was a sacred site even before Islam. They say it was built by Abraham himself. And it's said to house this mysterious black stone. It was given to Abraham by the angel Gabriel. It was originally white, but it turned black because of all the sins of humanity.
It's a powerful image of the weight of human suffering, the need for redemption, and the fact that Muslims from all over the world, they circle the Kaaba during the Hajj. It shows the unifying power of faith and that shared desire for a spiritual connection. It's beautiful, this image of unity and devotion.
And after the Prophet's death, during that golden age of Islam, you saw this amazing flourishing of art, science, and philosophy. Islamic scholars made groundbreaking discoveries in math, astronomy, medicine, so many fields. They were really important in preserving and expanding the knowledge of ancient cultures, laying the groundwork for the Renaissance.
It's a reminder that knowledge, it goes beyond cultures and religions. And true progress often means building on the wisdom of those who came before us. It's like a torch being passed down from generation to generation, each one adding its own flame to the fire of knowledge.
Exactly. While Europe was in the Dark Ages, the Islamic world was like this beacon of light, a center of learning. They kept that flame of knowledge burning brightly. They preserved that ancient wisdom and paved the way for new discoveries.
Okay, let's explore the symbolism and myths of the Native Americans. Their traditions are often overlooked in discussions of ancient wisdom, but they're filled with knowledge and insight.
Native American traditions are so diverse, but they also have these common threads. They have deep reverence for nature. They see the divine reflected in everything, trees, rocks, animals, the sky. They have this holistic worldview, recognizing how interconnected all life is.
Their mythology is full of stories about spirits and supernatural beings too, right?
Absolutely. They believe in the Manitos, these powerful spirits that inhabit everything, guiding things, influencing what happens. And their stories have all these trickster figures, shapeshifters, animal guides. They highlight that close relationship between humans and the natural world.
It's like their myths help them to understand the mysteries of the universe, our place in it. It's a blend of spirituality, ecological wisdom, this deep respect for nature.
Their rituals often involve drumming, singing, dancing, and storytelling. It creates a powerful sense of community, of connection to their ancestors, to the spirit world.
Okay, let's talk about the Popol Vuh. That's the sacred book of the Quiche people of Central America. It's something I've always wanted to explore more. What makes it so important?
The Popol Vuh tells the Quiche creation myth. It's their understanding of how the universe and humans came to be. And it emphasizes the plumed serpent, this divine being that represents wisdom, creation, that cycle of life, death, and rebirth.
And that plumed serpent is connected to other deities in Mesoamerican traditions, right? Like Quetzalcoatl in Mexico.
Exactly. The plumed serpent is this archetype that keeps appearing in Mesoamerican mythology. It represents that creative force that gives life to the universe, guides humanity's spiritual evolution. It's amazing to think that the name America might actually come from Amaruca, meaning land of the plumed serpent.
Wow, that's incredible. Like the very name of our continent is rooted in this ancient symbol of wisdom and transformation. It makes you think maybe there's some deeper destiny woven into this land, a call to embrace those ancient wisdom traditions and create a future that honors the interconnectedness of all life. Okay, let's talk about Hunahpu and Xbalanque, those hero twins from the Popol Vuh. What's their story?
The hero twins descend into this underworld called Xibalba. They have to face all these challenges. They test their skills, their cunning, their spiritual strength. It's a classic hero's journey, a quest for knowledge, for enlightenment. They confront the forces of darkness, overcome all this adversity.
It's a story that we see in different cultures, that idea of facing our fears, proving ourselves through trials and challenges. It's how we grow.
And each trial they face symbolizes a different stage of initiation, a step on that path to spiritual maturity, realizing your true potential. They even outsmart those lords of death. In this game, they play with a ball made from a human skull, symbolizing life's triumph over death. And in one really intense scene, they survive this deadly house of bats by hiding in their blowguns. They come out unharmed, and then they return the torches and cigars to the lords of death, unconsumed.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like they're mastering the elements, outsmarting death itself with their courage and cleverness. It's a powerful message of hope. Even when things seem impossible, there's always a way to overcome. To find the light in the darkness.
Speaking of people who face challenges and push the boundaries of human potential, let's talk about Cagliostro, a very controversial figure. He was connected to Egyptian Freemasonry.
He sounds like quite a character. Was he a true spiritual master, or was he a fraud?
Cagliostro was definitely enigmatic. He was a master of illusion, a student of the mysteries. He traveled all over Europe in the 18th century saying he had ancient knowledge and could perform miracles. Some people thought he was a true spiritual adept. Others thought he was a con man. Even his real identity is a mystery. Some people think he was actually Giuseppe Balsamo, this adventurer from Sicily. Others believe he was a real mystic with a secret past.
And wasn't he involved in that famous Queen's necklace scandal? That whole story is like something out of a historical drama.
Yes, he was accused of being part of this plot to steal a diamond necklace from Marie Antoinette. But later he was cleared of all charges. A lot of people think he was set up, and that he might have even warned the intended victim, Cardinal de Rohan, about the whole scheme.
Sounds like he walked this fine line between illusion and reality, a master of secrets, a catalyst for change.
His connection to Egyptian Freemasonry suggests he might have had access to esoteric teachings that were kept secret from most people. His life and his legacy are still a fascinating mystery.
Speaking of mysterious figures, we can't forget about the Comte de Saint-Germain, the man who seemed to exist outside of time and space. He's one of history's greatest enigmas.
The Comte de Saint-Germain, he was this legendary figure in the courts of Europe in the 18th century. Known for his vast knowledge, his ability to speak so many languages, and his mysterious disappearances and reappearances.
He sounds like a real-life time traveler, popping up in different eras, always leaving a trail of intrigue.
He was like a Renaissance man come to life. A master of music, art, science. He could play many instruments brilliantly. He created paintings with this unique luminescence, and he spoke countless languages fluently. He even said he knew the secret of immortality, hinting that he was centuries old.
He embodies that alchemical dream of immortality, of transcending human limitations. What are some of those stories about his ability?
Oh, there's so many. They talk about his extraordinary talents, his knowledge of history and alchemy, his ability to make objects appear out of thin air, to even predict the future. Some accounts say he would describe historical events in incredible detail, as if he was actually there. Others say he would just vanish, only to reappear somewhere else, like magic.
He sounds like a superhero, a mysterious benefactor working behind the scenes to help humanity. It's inspiring, but also a little unnerving to think that there might be forces at work in the world that we can't even grasp. And what happened to him in the end? It's still a mystery, isn't it?
It is. Some people believe he ascended to a higher realm. Others think he's still alive today, working in secret.
This has been an incredible journey. We've explored ancient mysteries, esoteric teachings, the lives of these individuals who seem to have transcended the limits of time and space. It's been a mind-bending exploration of those hidden dimensions of reality, of that potential for spiritual growth and transformation that's within each of us.
It really is amazing how those ancient teachings, those stories, even though they come from cultures and times so different from our own, they still speak to us. They touch on that deep human longing for meaning, for purpose, for connection to something bigger than ourselves.
It's like those ancient seekers, they tapped into this universal wisdom, a wisdom that goes beyond time and culture. It's still there for us if we're willing to open our hearts and minds.
They remind us that the search for knowledge, for enlightenment, it's a journey that doesn't end. Countless seekers throughout history have walked this path. And we're part of that lineage. We all have that potential to unlock those secrets, to realize our true nature as spiritual beings.
It's not just about learning about the past. It's about taking that ancient wisdom and applying it to our lives today, using it to face the challenges of the modern world, to create a more harmonious and enlightened future.
Well said. Philip of Macedon believed that Aristotle held the key to well-being. Maybe it's time for us to find our own Aristotle in this 21st century.
That's a powerful thought. It makes you wonder where we might find those sources of wisdom, those guides, amidst all the complexities of modern life. What hidden knowledge is out there, waiting to be discovered, and what mysteries are you ready to explore?
The journey of discovery never ends. And the answers, they're always within.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into those mysteries of the ages. Keep seeking, keep questioning, keep exploring. The journey's just beginning.